The skyscraper's executive floor buzzed with polished shoes, clinking glasses, and smug laughter. Mr. Blake, a sharp-suited millionaire known for his ruthless humor and arrogance, leaned back in his leather chair, twirling a gold pen between his fingers. A group of executives had gathered in his office for a casual post-deal celebration. They were already on their second round of champagne when the topic turned to their annual charity gala. Blake, half bored and craving amusement, raised an eyebrow and said with a chuckle, "You know what would be hilarious? Inviting that cleaner, what's her name, Maria, the one always humming with a mop in hand." The room erupted in laughter. One of his associates, Darren, added, "Yeah, let's see how she scrubs up for a 5-star gala." Another chimed in, "Maybe she'll come wearing her janitor's uniform." Asterisk with a grin, Blake reached for his gold-embossed invitation cards, the kind reserved for CEOs, royalty, and celebrity investors. In bold letters, he scribbled her name, Maria Gonzalez. His tone mockingly exaggerated as he wrote, "You are cordially invited to the annual Platinum Gala, hosted by Mr. Blake and partners, dress code, red carpet glamour." Everyone chuckled. Darren asked sarcastically, "You think she can even read that?" Blake shrugged, "It's just for fun. She won't dare show up anyway. It's beneath her and above her." Asterisk outside the room, Maria stood silently, broom in hand, just out of sight. The laughter inside echoed painfully through the half-open glass door. Her fingers tightened around the broom's wooden handle as she heard her name tossed around like a joke. A moment later, Blake casually walked out, still laughing, and spotted her. Pretending to be gracious, he handed her the invitation with a smirk. "We'd be honored to have you, Maria," he said, barely holding back another laugh as his friends watched from behind. Asterisk Maria took the card gently with both hands. Her eyes met Blake's calm and unreadable. "Thank you, sir," she said softly, then turned and walked away, her step steady, her face composed, but deep within her, something had shifted. The joke was noted, the insult was clear, and her silence was not surrender, it was strategy. The evening sun dipped low, casting a soft orange glow through the narrow windows of Maria's modest apartment. Inside, silence filled the space, no TV, no music, only the quiet hum of distant traffic and the ticking of a wall clock. Maria stood in front of her small mirror, her reflection staring back at her with quiet intensity. She held the invitation card in her hand, now slightly creased from where her fingers had gripped it tightly on the bus ride home. The gold lettering shimmered faintly under the light, red carpet glamour. Asterisk, she placed the card gently on her dresser and opened the top drawer. From beneath old scarves and folded laundry, she pulled out a small wooden box, the kind that carried memories, not jewels. She sat on the edge of her bed, opened it slowly, and revealed its contents. A delicate pair of crystal earrings, a worn photo of her in a past life, younger, smiling, standing in a studio with lights behind her, and a velvet pouch holding a dress folded with care. It was elegant, timeless, something she hadn't worn in years. A gift from someone she once loved, a part of herself she had buried long ago. Asterisk with quiet determination, she laid out the dress on her bed and began getting ready. She applied makeup with slow, practiced hands, light foundation, a touch of blush, and a bold lip color she hadn't worn in ages. She tied her hair into a sleek bun, pinning it with precision. When she slipped into the dress, her entire posture shifted. She no longer looked like a cleaner. She looked like a woman with history, strength, and elegance. Someone the world had forgotten, but who hadn't forgotten herself. Asterisk as she stepped into her simple heels and grabbed a clutch, a car horn echoed. Outside, Maria looked out the window and saw the black car she'd booked a small indulgence she allowed herself tonight. She took one last look in the mirror, nodded to herself, and whispered under her breath, "Let's see who the joke's really on." Then she turned off the lights, locked the door, and disappeared into the night. Not as Maria the cleaner, but as a woman ready to reclaim her place. Asterisk the grand ballroom shimmered with opulence. Chandeliers sparkled overhead. Violins played softly in the background, and rows of the city's elite clinked glasses and exchanged hollow compliments. Velvet drapes framed the marble walls, and waiters in white gloves moved gracefully through the crowd. Laughter and polite conversation filled the air as Mr. Blake stood near the entrance, surrounded by his usual circle of admirers. He was basking in his own charm, sipping from a crystal glass, when a sudden shift in energy moved through the room. Asterisk the main doors opened with a hush that silenced even the music. All heads turned instinctively. There, standing at the top of the grand staircase, was Maria. But no one recognized her, not at first. She was breathtaking. Draped in a deep emerald gown that flowed like water with every step, she descended the stairs with grace and quiet power. The crystal earrings caught the chandelier light, dancing with brilliance. Her chin was lifted, her expression calm but confident. Gone was the woman they passed by in hallways without a glance. Tonight, she was mystery and elegance personified. Asterisk whispers fluttered through the crowd. Who is she? Is she a celebrity? A foreign dignitary? Even the camera crew hired for the gala turned their lenses toward her. instinctively sensing something or someone important had just arrived. Blake's smirk faded slowly as he stared at her, confused, then stunned. It was only when she walked past him, pausing just briefly enough for their eyes to meet, that realization hit. Maria, the cleaner, the one they laughed about. And now, she wasn't the joke, she was the moment. With deliberate poise. Maria held the very invitation card he had handed her, now tucked into a small clutch like a badge of silent defiance. She walked past him without a word, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. The crowd parted for her, as if drawn by her presence. By the time she reached the center of the ballroom, there was no doubt left. Tonight, she owned the room. The crowd was still buzzing, eyes discreetly following Maria as she moved through the sea of silk gowns and designer tuxedos. She carried herself with quiet command, her every step calm, measured as if she'd walked such halls all her life. But not everyone was whispering. One man, standing near the edge of the gathering, froze completely the moment his eyes landed on her. He tilted his head, studying her face, his champagne glass lowering slowly. It took only seconds before recognition lit his expression. Maria. He called out, his voice cautious, yet amazed. She turned toward the sound. Her eyes met his, and for a flicker of a second, her cool composure wavered, a small, bittersweet smile forming at the corners of her lips. The man stepped forward, stunned. He was Daniel Roach, a major fashion house executive known globally, but also, years ago, one of the few who had seen Maria's brilliance firsthand when she modeled part-time before her life took a sudden turn. I thought you vanished, he said gently. You were everywhere, then just gone. Maria nodded, her voice soft but steady. Life changed, I had to take care of family. But I never vanished, I just stepped into a different kind of work. Daniel shook his head, still in disbelief. You walked in like a queen tonight. My God, Maria, you haven't lost it. If anything, you're more powerful now. If you're willing, I want the world to see you again. Before she could reply, Blake approached, face flushed with embarrassment, but trying to play it cool. Maria, I didn't think you'd actually come. This was meant to be lighthearted, just a bit of fun. She looked at him, completely unshaken. I know exactly what it was, she said, her voice smooth, and I'm grateful. Without that joke, I wouldn't have reminded myself who I used to be, and who I still am. Blake opened his mouth to respond, but she'd already turned back to Daniel, leaving him behind in the silence of his own humiliation. The music dimmed, and the ballroom's lights softened to a gentle amber glow as the evening neared its peak. Guests whispered curiously as a hush fell over the space. All eyes turned toward the small stage at the front of the hall, where a microphone stood waiting. The host of the gala, noticing the audience's sudden shift in focus, quickly caught on. With a curious smile, he stepped up to the mic and cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, scanning the crowd. It seems we've had a surprise guest this evening, one whose presence has stirred not just attention, but admiration. He gestured toward Maria, who stood near the front. Maria Gonzalez, would you honor us with a few words? At first, she hesitated. The weight of hundreds of elite eyes turned toward her was heavy, but only for a breath. Then, slowly, she stepped forward, her gown catching the stage lights like a pool of emerald flame. With calm grace, she ascended the stairs and took the mic, her face serene, her voice clear. I wasn't supposed to be here tonight, she began. In fact, I was invited as a joke, a way to amuse those who thought I couldn't possibly belong in a room like this. A ripple of uncomfortable silence spread across the hall. Several glanced at Mr. Blake, who now stood rigid, his smile frozen in place. Maria continued. For years, I cleaned offices, restrooms, hallways, spaces, just like this one, though I was never really seen. People walked past me, laughed, around me, sometimes at me. But what they didn't know was that before I held a mop, I held dreams. I once walked runways,